I'm Rob Thomas, editor-in-chief of Club and Resort Business, and welcome to another episode of the Club and Resort Talks podcast. Today's podcast is sponsored by Fiberbuilt. Fiberbuilt umbrellas and cushions specializes in shade projects that enhance the decor of pool decks, alfresco dining facilities, and outdoor lounge areas. Designers recognize the distinctive styles, sizes, fabrics, and options available as they fashion inviting environments. General managers welcome Fiberbuilt's structural integrity, durability, and value. Members and their guests appreciate the comfort of shade as they enjoy their day at the club. Learn more at fiberbuiltumbrellas.com. Now that we've got that taken care of, let me tell you that today's guest on the podcast is going to be Casey Brozek. He is the director of golf at Medinah Country Club. They just renovated, totally redid their number three course, which is going to be home to the 2026 President's Cup. We're going to be talking about that as well. But a lot of stuff going on at Medinah. So I look forward to sharing that with you. But before I get to Casey, let me tell you in the news currently is big news coming out of Northern Michigan, Forest Dunes to be exact. The award-winning golf facility in Roscommon, Michigan, is poised to add a fourth SkyFall, a fourth golf course, SkyFall. It's a new private club designed by Hanse and Jim Wagner that will also allow limited resort and guest play. Big news. They have like three top 100 golf course at Forest Dunes already. So adding a fourth is going to be amazing. And Hanse, Jim Wagner make a great team. So look for a fourth top 100 golf course in Northern Michigan. Next up, we got some news out of Florida. A lot of news coming out of Florida. Henderson Park has completed the acquisition of PGA National Resort in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, from a Brookfield Asset Management private real estate fund. The 807-acre property was purchased in a joint venture partnership with Salamander and South Street Partners. Long time in the making. I think we first reported that back in November, and it is now finalized. PGA National has a lot of golf, a lot of recreation. We did a feature on them because they completed like $100 million renovation of their property within the last couple of years. So terrific news out of there, and exciting to see what's going to be next for the property. Last but not least, we have a home builder enlisting CW golf course architecture to bring golf to the Georgia coast. Taylor Morrison's new resort lifestyle community, Esplanade in at St. Mary's, will include an 18-hole championship golf course, a wellness center featuring a full-service spa and salon, a resort pool and spa, a state-of-the-art fitness center, tennis, pickleball, bocce courts, and a culinary center featuring multiple food and beverage outlets and much more. A lot going on. That is just north of Jacksonville, Florida, right on the Georgia coast. So beautiful property. I'm sure it's very sandy terrain out there and going to be beautiful to I think they have a plan for an aqua driving range. That was at least the plan last year at some point. So we'll see if that's going to go on with CW architecture. Big news out of Georgia, Florida. Let's get to Chicagoland in Medinah Country Club and see what Casey Brozek's up to. Hello and welcome back to the Club and Resort Talks podcast. I'm with Casey Brozek, the director of golf at Medinah. Medinah, wow, big time. Casey, how you doing? And welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Rob. It's nice to be with you. Doing great. It's a little bit of off-season time, so we're planning up for 2025.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you could, we've got a Medinah Country Club not too far from me, without the H. If you could give us an overview of your Medinah, which is much more well known than our Medinah.
Well, I think we get some of the shipments from your Medina once in a while. Our Medina has been around since 1924, an iconic style clubhouse, beautiful clubhouse, 54 holes in course one, two, and three. We've got, 1,100 families that we service here at the club. And as you can imagine, robust programming that comes along with it.
Oh, fantastic. Make sure you send that return to sender so
That's right.
our friends at the Medina with no H gets their stuff. You just went, the reason I'm talking to you, aside from the fact that Medina is a big name in the golf industry, is that the number three course just went under, just took over a little bit of a renovation, I believe. Could you give us a little overview, primary goal of renovation, how you decided on Ogilvy, Cocking, and Mead, so on and so forth?
Sure, sure. Yeah, we're proud to have just opened up in July of 2024. And if you can remember what the weather was like over the winter time here in the Midwest, we had a great winter and a beautiful spring. So it opened up in fine shape and really came out of renovation really, really good. To answer your question directly, we're really proud of our partnership with OCM. And they did a fantastic job bringing us a golf course in the land that we have that really changed. It changed significantly. We're really proud of it. Going back to those decision times, we had, it was really, we were overdue for it. The golf course was too hard for the member. It was too easy for the tour professional. And there were just some things that came along with being a narrow tree-lined golf course that we really needed. We really needed to reboot. And at the time of the decision, we really didn't know when we were talking to the experts if it was going to be a restoration or a complete revamp. And with OCM's design, we got a complete revamp, and we're very proud of it.
So, okay, you brought in OCM. I believe Ogilvy is the professional golfer Ogilvy, correct?
That's right. Jeff
Yeah.
Ogilvy is part of the team, and they are quite a trio, let me tell you. So we're very pleased to have Jeff Ogilvy on the team, along with Mike Cocking and Mead, because it's nice to have that tour eye, right? So when you're talking about championships and things like that, he brings a whole nother level to it with regards to the final product.
Yeah, I'm sure your game is better than mine. I'm a 10, so I'm not exactly going to go out there and see the golf course the same way as Jeff Ogilvy, Justin Thomas, or whoever's playing at a higher level than me. But so like Tom Bendelow, I believe, was the original designer. Are there any, can we still see a little Tom Bendelow in the course, or is it like, wow?
No, absolutely. 13 of Bendelow's original design holes are still there. What came about in this process, for those that remember, 17, the par three going over Lake Kadijah, and then 18 going right from there out towards the clubhouse. 18 now has moved in from the main entrance road area about 400 or so yards, 450 yards. And that takes us back to the original, back to at least before the 80s. So yeah, we tipped the cap back to Bendelow design in 13 holes. OCM's design is pretty unique. I chop it up usually when I talk about it into 6 different increments. So when you play the first 6 holes, you're going to recognize where you are and what it looks like, and it's going to look similar, but bunkering's different, fairways are wider, fewer trees on the golf course. The second 6 are kind of renumbered, and they kind of go on a different routing. And then the last 6 are completely different. And I think that was part of our leadership's decision, was to go with somebody like OCM that had a little bit more of a bold statement, because we didn't want just a renovation. We just didn't want a restoration. We wanted something that was going to kind of blow it up, and really reboot for course number 3.
And you're going to be hosting some big time golf in the next couple of years, I imagine.
That's right. Yeah, we're on the docket for 2026. We'll be hosting the President's Cup in September.
That is fantastic. I cannot wait. I will
Right.
be watching intently. So any project, it's not just this flat line, right? There's some peaks and valleys, some bumps in the road. What were some of the challenges that you faced as a club and that OCM faced, and how were they overcome?
Well, I think that as you can imagine, probably the number one thing to do at this time, by the way, we already had a President's Cup contract signed. So at that time, um, membership could be thinking, we already have major tournaments coming our way. What do we need to make changes for? But our membership embraced this change, and the hardest part, though, was educating the membership. That's what we had to do. We strategically had to explain, as the experts came to us and said, from a holistic standpoint, if we're going to make a change in course number 3, it's not a little bit here or a little bit there. It's a complete revamp. And OCM brought us that, and they did a great job of helping us educate our members. So the membership was all in, and I'll have to tell you, since July 13th when we opened, the feedback from our membership has been fabulous. So they love course 3, and they like being able to access it and be back on it. But it also brings the opportunity for, like I pointed to before, it was really kind of easy for the tour player and hard for the member. Now we've got more accessibility and a little bit easier access to certain things, off the tee, and access points to greens and chip up areas where the average player can enjoy course 3 as well.
Now, you had mentioned educating the members a couple times in that last statement. Uh, Trees are beautiful to look at. You and I love it, right? Trees are not necessarily good for golf courses. They block the sun. They rob the soil of nutrients. They're just trying to get by, like all of us, obviously. So some of the trees had to be removed during the process. How was this change addressed with the membership? Did you say, hey, this is going to be the old story was a superintendent has a chainsaw and has lightning written on it, right? So someone comes in, there's no tree there. Oh, lightning got it last night. So how did you guys deal with the membership as far as the tree removal?
So you need, the listeners need to understand that tree removal at Medina started over 12 years ago, 10, 12 years ago. So even back, even before the 2012 Ryder Cup, the folks that were here at the time looked at strategic trees to make sure that we continue to try to improve turf conditions, to your point. Frankly, during championships, our turf conditions were not rated very high, and sometimes even by our membership. So as you eliminate some of those trees and you get rid of the ones that maybe aren't strategic, you start to increase the quality of the turf. And this project did remove quite a few trees, but we also gained 2 features. If you say that Medina number one feature before this renovation was the tree-lined fairways, I think everybody would agree to that. You had to bomb it and you had to hit it straight. Now, with OCM's design, we're dealing a lot more with the topography, the land, the natural contours of our land. And the other feature is fescue. So we put in 50 acres of fescue grass. So those 2 features are phenomenal, and it does create a holistic approach from the first hole to the 18th hole. But I am here to say that we still have strategic trees on the golf course. It's really cool when you see the old oak specimens still there, 400 years old, that are in amongst our golf course. So it's pretty cool.
So it's not just a barren wasteland with a couple of holes in the ground.
Right. You can see vistas through across the fairways and over the fescue, which is a really neat look. But yes, you can see through the trees now. It's not a forest where it's so thick and dense.
Spectacular. So you had mentioned the last 6 holes were kind of a brand new to the course. In my research, I'm hearing about the 16th. We talked about the 17th, the par 3, and 18 that's going back to the clubhouse. Tell us a little bit about the 16th and how that plays in with the narrative of the golf course.
Sure. So the old 16th was the hole where Sergio kicked up his heels. You remember that, right?
Yes.
So now that's 15, and it's a little bit different. From the back tees, it plays 514 yards up the hill, par 4. The 16th hole is where the old 17th tee was. and now it's a dogleg right over water. The unique thing about that, and this is pointing to the President's Cup, is a risk reward hole. So you and I, as a 10 and a golf professional, we may take a little bit more line to the left and play it safe and then have a little bit of a longer approach. The tour player is going to kind of bite off a little bit more and get that thing within wedge range so they can get their approach shot up close to the hole. And you have the ability to do that. You also have the ability to play a different tee deck, maybe if you're a tour operator, and play it as a risk reward reachable par four. So I think that's going to create some excitement in 2026 during the President's Cup.
Well, if Bryson's on the team, I'm sure we're talking about that risk reward going for it, right? Regardless of what the team.
If my partner's in play, even as a shirt salesman here, Club Pro, I might try to sneak one up to the left fringe or something like that. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll have a wedge. It just might be my third shot, you're telling me. All right. So you'd mentioned that the members are happy. And that's really, you're here to serve the members. You're not here
That's right.
necessarily to serve the President's Cup. You'd have a contract. But so the members are happy. So what are some of the things that you're hearing from your members?
Playability, one of the biggest things that comes through with OCM is our pinnable locations on the greens. The green complexes are much more interesting. There were places where the rough stopped the ball from going into a bunker. So you had a green, you had fringe, you had rough, and then you had bunker. And you often had to hit pitch shots from 3 yards off the green with a 60-degree wedge just to kind of chop it out and get it on the green. Now we have a lot of runoff areas, probably for whether it be a better player that's a single digit trying to shoot in the low 70s or somebody that's a 10 or 16 handicap. They all know now that the strategy of this golf course comes in the angles in which you approach the greens. Because if it's playing firm and fast the way it's meant to play, then it's going to be challenging because the green complexes, the angles from the fairways. OCM gives you a lot of room off the tee to bail out in certain situations. But if you avoid a bunker in a fairway or some other hazard, you're going to have a tougher angle to the green. And therefore, your percentage of lower scores goes way down.
Well, that's not great news for me, but I'm sure that's where the pros are going to enjoy it. It's a thinking man's golf course.
It is.
During my research, now I'm hearing about this split rail fence on holes 5 through 7. I don't know what this means, but how did that come about and how has that been received?
So OCM did their research, and back in they found some old pictures from the 30s where there were players putting on a green and players teeing off on a tee where there's a fence in the background. Not one in the distance. This is one that's rather close and in play. So when you think about our golf course and you think about how our water feature that runs through the course is really called Lake Kadijah, and it hits the golf course in a variety of areas. Number 2, number 12. It comes into play on 13, but really 16, 17 are the main areas coming into the final part of the round. And the fence really provides, to OCM's point, provides a hazard kind of more in the middle of the round. So 5, 6, 7. Number 5 is a par 5 for the membership, and you've got tons of room off the tee to the right. But if you're going to hit a second shot that goes up the left side, that fence comes into play a little bit. And then you've got a great angle for your third. Now, if you stay to the right on both shots because you're a little nervous about the fence, then you're not going to have a great third shot angle. Number 6 is probably the one that brings maybe, I guess you could say, controversy, but it's been embraced by our membership. It comes within, probably 7 feet of the green. So it is right there. And if you look to the days and some of the courses that are still around, the road hole, there's other courses where there's fences and stone fences overseas. This is kind of like that. It's a different kind of hazard, but it definitely makes the player perk up their radar a little bit. The nice thing about hole number 6, I said it's right there by the collar of the green. There's 15 yards of runoff and chip up area on the right. not the easiest chip in the world, and you certainly have to chip towards the fence, but you can. You've got room. So it's not like you have a gaping 9 foot deep bunker on the right side of the green when you've got a tough fence to deal with. At first it can be controversial, but the members that have come back with that unsolicited feedback have kind of turned around. They've come to us and at least to me and said how much they think it's a great feature on our course.
And I bet the aesthetics are going to be off the chains as well, right? So you get some Evan Schiller or Brian or one of these fantastic golf photographers we have. I'm sure it's going to be a feature in their pictures.
Yeah, we've got a couple of nice pictures of it now. I think to your point, and right around that fence, you need to know that to the left of the fence is a lot of our fescue. So what 5, 6, 7, and really especially 7, 8, and 9, there's a large a number of acres where we have fescue. And when the wind's blowing and the fescue is kind of waving back and forth, it's gorgeous.
I can't wait to see it for myself. Talking about maintenance of the golf course, how has this renovation shifted? Easier, harder? What's the superintendent dealing with now?
Good question. The team has been very intentional about how they're approaching course 3 and what they have to do, some of the pivots they've had to make. The coolest thing that we accomplished with course number 3 is the infrastructure. We put in 40 miles of drainage under the golf course, and and that goes a long way when you want to play firm and fast, right? So if you get a little bit of rain, now we were able to actually do that and continue that feature of firm and fast as best we can. The other thing that came along with it, of course, is fescue grass. So the maintenance of that is not so laborious. So beyond that, I would say that the bunkers probably they're a huge part of OCM's design, and we did the Better Billy bunkers. So the flashings up don't drain down. That raking process is not so troublesome for us. So from a maintenance standpoint, we checked quite a few boxes.
I'll tell you, drainage and irrigation aren't sexy. They're not great sexy to look at, or you can't look at them. But the superintendent and what they do for the golf course, amazing, right?
Yeah, I will say this too, Rob. One of the coolest things that we had the luxury of taking advantage of in this design is we had OCM on property. We also had the PGA Tour on property because they were starting to do some work with regards to the President's Cup. And OCM being the smart business gentlemen that they are, said, what would you do? What would you do with course number 3? And one of the cool features, and really it's logistics and it's kind of operations, but we put in a perimeter road. And for our future and championships and things like that, it really makes it very easy for maintenance trucks or food and beverage trucks, those kinds of things, rules officials, evacuations of players. That's a key component to our new design.
Fantastic. How going to get you out on this one, Casey? I always ask people to take out their crystal ball. I want you to look into the crystal ball 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. All right, what are we looking at Medinah going forward?
You know what? First of all, we'll continue to satisfy our membership. That's the biggest thing, is making sure that we stay member focused. We're laser focused on our members right now, making sure that whether it be course 3 or either one of the other courses in their consistency and approach, that they continue to be our number one priority. Beyond that, though, and you pointed to it, I think a little bit after the President's Cup, what happens? I really don't know, to be honest with you, but we're open to it. And having majors at our club or big tournaments is in our DNA. So we're open to all those discussions, and we look forward to those. I hope to see something come our way, and because it's an exciting town, it's a great golf town, and Medinah loves to be right at the center of it.
All right, fantastic. Casey Brozek, thank you very much for joining us in the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me.